Washington continues to send schools and libraries billions of dollars every year, all to help them secure the networks that they use. And here in Annapolis, the year after all of those teachers' paychecks were stolen, this district got $3 million. To see how D.C. schools are spending their share of the COVID relief money, the 7 News I-Team first spent months getting and then reviewing thousands of D.C.'s financial records. Does it take almost $3 million to tell somebody that message? Are they actually going to listen to you? They say that he helped slash the police budget, that he pushed to restrict police officers' authority, and advocated to actually loosen laws built to punish criminals. Now, Councilman Allen, he refutes some of this stuff and says that that is only part of the story. D.C. schools did spend millions of dollars buying computers, securing internet connections, and buying cleaning supplies. But they also spent millions renting equipment. They even rented a stadium.
Abdurrahman Kelly of Washington, D.C. in Lane 8.
Abdurrahman Kelly has been running his whole life.
Just keep working. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm always out there.
In 2014, he became one of the fastest athletes in the district. His 800-meter record still stands today.
And it always bothered me stepping on the stage and everybody like, yeah, he just won. They go da-da-da. It's like, y'all don't know, when I step off this podium, I'm going back to poverty.
Kelly spent his senior year smashing track times at Roosevelt High School, all as police were chasing more than 5,400 crimes in his neighborhood. What happens if you don't get a scholarship?
If I don't get a scholarship, only the Lord knows. I can tell you right now, track saved me, track saved my family, and track really saved the people around us.
Today, he's turned a track scholarship into a social work degree. He didn't run far, though. He works with nonprofit youth groups and organizes workouts for kids across the district. He came home to today's juvenile crime spike. Last year, MPD arrested more than 2,200 kids. Are you surprised by how many kids are committing crimes right now?
No, because it's the same thing. It's the same cycle. If you don't fix the issue, then the wheel is spinning this way. Here it goes, mass incarceration, missing daddy, kid abandoned. Mom can't do nothing, she has to work, kid is neglected. Kid follows crew gets him in trouble. One of them go to jail, all of them go to jail or die. And then we back at square one.
It starts with a plan, and it starts with leadership, and right now we have neither.
Those studying why kids commit crimes agree the generational crime cycle has to be broken. The head of Georgetown Law's Juvenile Justice Initiative told us breaking it starts with reframing the problem.
Often right now, the way the conversation is being framed is about public safety, which often relates to, I want to feel safe. What we need to shift the conversation to is, how do we create thriving and healthy young people, families, and communities? Because safety will be a byproduct of that.
Multiple studies have tied crime to wealth equity. A decade ago, the Department of Justice paid for one of those studies that concluded isolating citizens into neighborhoods based on economic resources appears to have the most explosive effect on the overall level of crime. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the District of Columbia has more wealth controlled by fewer people than any American state. You think it's all economic?
Definitely. That's the root of it. You have kids who are incentivized. Violence is incentivized in our environment.
How so?
If you can have a grown man tell that kid to go get that car, and when everybody's looking at the media like, oh, these kids are running wild, they don't understand that there's 21 to 30-year-old people in our community who are encouraging these kids to go get that car and giving them $100 or a couple of $100. So a 12-year-old kid that you just described, he don't have no food, the lights might be off, and daddy ain't home, mom just barely getting by.
Understand what it takes to escape this cycle, and you'll understand why Kelly is still running hard.
I ran to get out of the environment, now it's time to run back and save everybody else. Whoa!
100 rounds fired at dismissal. But somehow, the sniper perched above D.C.'s Edmund Burke School last spring didn't kill anyone.
Had the circumstances been different, that could have easily been the worst school shooting in U.S. history.
Instead, Edmund Burke became a footnote in America's gun violence story, just one of the DMV's 32 school shootings last year. It's one of the nearly 3,000 mass shootings David Reedman logged in his database full of every school shooting since 1970. It's a database that provides a surprising insight.
Schools are one of the lowest places that these mass attacks happen, far outweighed by malls, theaters, concerts, other airports, other places like that. Schools don't rank in the top 5 of that.
The 7 News Eye team poured through each school shooting, discovering 2 out of every 3 school shootings happen outside school buildings, most long after students go home.
Even though we have a conceptual understanding of a school shooting being something like Parkland or something like Sandy Hook, when students are sitting in a classroom and a shooter enters their classroom, that's extraordinarily rare.
Out of 166 school shootings in the DMV since 1970, 106 of them happened outside school buildings. Local school security directors say most of what is classified as a school shooting is community gun violence that spills onto school property.
When most people hear school shooting, they think of a mass violence attack. They're not thinking of community gun violence that is leaked inside of the school.
Jason Stoddard is Charles County School Security Director.
One of the scariest parts about school safety and security is the fact that post-tragedy, more money is infused into it. What we need is consistency.
Stoddard just spent $207,000 on 300 gun-detecting security cameras. He used a one-time state grant, becoming the first school district in Maryland to install this tech. Today, the grant money pays for the cameras and the software licenses that make them run. But in 2 years, the grant money and the camera software licenses run out.
And then after that, it will be moved into our budget, my budget, in our school system as part of maintenance of effort.
Lobbying records show the American security industry pushing for more and more one-time state and federal grant money for school security. Internal industry research obtained by the 7 News Eye team says the physical security market in education in the United States is a multi-billion-dollar revenue opportunity. It says the threats most likely to generate sales are unauthorized access, risks to staff safety, student violence, and lone wolf attacks. Are you getting sales pitches fairly regularly? Every day. Mm-hmm. What are you being pitched?
Anything from wireless or communication devices to, in the era of COVID, masks and gloves.
Is the amount of money that is being poured into school security, is it necessary given the actual risk?
You know, that's a great question. So these are, when you talk about school shootings, these are, relatively, right, low frequency, but high consequence events. You know, it would be unbalanced to pursue only solutions that are aimed at like a mass shooting event only.
Jake Parker directs government relations for the Silver Spring-based Security Industry Association. SIA represents more than 1,300 security companies. Is this a business opportunity for you?
Well, I mean, of course, I think that many of the solutions, though, that are deployed for school safety purposes are the same as you would have in other commercial sectors.
Nomi Durand never missed an online class.
I don't think my grades reflected how I was doing, because my grades were great.
She tried to lift herself up by writing herself notes, messages like "you're doing amazing" before starting a new online school day. But her uplifting notes weren't the only messages she was reading.
There was one night where I got a text at 2 a.m. of someone saying, like, I want to kill myself right now.
This is your friend.
This is my friend. This is one of my best friends. And that really hurt me.
Her friend got help, but Durand realized not everyone has someone to text at 2 a.m., so she did something about it. She lobbied D.C. City Council,
make sure that every school has at least one counselor,
and launched a website full of information for teens about anxiety, self-care, and grief. There's even a list of therapy options.
It's my own personal experience that's helped me realize that me and my friends did not get the help that we needed when we needed it, and so I needed to do something about it.
Have you spent money on this?
Oh, yeah.
How much money?
$1,000 at this point, probably.
Around the same time a 17-year-old student was spending her own money, Congress had already sent D.C. public schools more than $100 million. They'd sent Virginia schools more than $1 billion. But in Virginia and in Washington, D.C., and across the country, schools were not in a hurry to spend all of that money on mental health. The need is now.
Need is now. Our kiddos are struggling. and we need individuals in schools to help support them.
Jill Cook has unique insight into our schools. As president of the American School Counselor Association, she hears from school counselors every day. She says students are experiencing mental health issues and expressing suicidal ideas much more often than before the pandemic.
If we can identify early warning signs, if we can see when a kid might be struggling, schools are a great place to catch that.
Yet 16 months into the pandemic, despite having access to more than $1 billion federal dollars, Virginia's schools spent just $3.7 million on mental health support. Fairfax and Loudoun County Public Schools, two of the state's largest school districts, didn't spend a dime. Neither district would agree to an interview to talk about why. In Washington, D.C., despite having access to $109 million in federal money, by July 2021, D.C. schools had spent less than $32,000 on student and staff mental health.
We continue to ensure that we are spending our funds strategically to ensure acceleration of learning, but also our health and safety protocols.
D.C. Schools Chancellor Louis Farabee told us the district has allocated all of its federal money and is working on spending it.
Our rebound from the pandemic is not a 1 year, a 2 years, a multi-year effort, and those resources will be well spent.
Hundreds of students have read our information packets. Tens of thousands have seen our posts on Instagram.
Your $1,000 has reached that many people. What could $1 million do?
So much more, and that's why I wish that schools would use that money.